And joining us now is President Trump's attorney, Jay Sekulow. Jay, thank you so much for being with us.
Sure.
Jay, the report seems to leave open the door to questions of obstruction of justice. Mueller investigators noting they were unable to say definitively that the president didn't commit obstruction. Do you believe the release of the Mueller report today closes the door on that question?
I sure do. In the Department of Justice, the Attorney General said no collusion nor obstruction under Department of Justice guidelines on how to bring a case. And it was important that what Bob Mueller said was, while he said they didn't exonerate the president, which, by the way, is not the job of a prosecutor, they didn't they didn't accuse him of violating the law either. So when you have a situation like that, it's a declination. So this was a long way of saying the case in 400 pages was declined. And the overarching issue here was, of course, and the critical overarching issue was, in fact, this issue of Russia collusion or conspiracy in the courts. The outcome there was unequivocal.
Jay, can you tell us how the president is feeling?
Pleased. I mean, he was pleased 3 weeks ago when the Attorney General issued the summary letter of the principal conclusion of Bob Mueller's report, and he's pleased today that this is now behind the country and behind him. And, you know, I think that after an extensive investigation like this, enough is enough.
Jay, you and your team got a chance to see the report Tuesday and I believe Wednesday. There's been some criticism over that. I just want to know, why did you press to have an advanced view?
Well, we have that right under the Office of Government Ethics guidelines that govern the Department of Justice. Our client, the president, was the subject of the inquiry. The report was about our client, and we put in a request to be able to review the redacted report. We didn't have any interaction with the Department of Justice. We didn't talk to anybody within the Department of Justice about the report. We didn't offer suggestions on editing or redacting. We simply reviewed it, and that was appropriate under OGE guidelines.
Jay, do you think Mueller should testify before Congress about this report?
You know, that's a question the Department of Justice has to answer, because Bob Mueller, at the end of the day, was an employee of the Department of Justice. There's Article 2 issues there and separation of powers, and that's a question that I'm happy to say the president's lawyers don't make, the Justice Department does.
Jay, the Russia investigation is over, but the president is still facing multiple investigations from Congress. What's your take on those investigations?
Presidential harassment. That's what this is. I mean, this idea that these subpoenas are going all over to the banks and to tax returns, information that clearly under both separation of powers and constitutionally they don't have the authority to get. Nevertheless, they're trying. So look, I think it's presidential harassment there. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in the days ahead. But I think we play by the law, and the law is clear, and we're going to insist on the law being followed. And that means whether it's at the House or the Senate, and in any case, if there's an issue that we think is worthy to litigate, we will litigate it.
The Democrats, they will have their investigations, but what about the investigations, Jay, into the way this whole Russia probe started? Barr, he testified last week saying that the spying did occur.
Yeah, and that's a very serious accusation. We have evidence, we've seen it, you've talked about it, of what was going on here against the president, this Operation Crossfire Hurricane, these FISA warrants, the Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page issues. Those are all significant. They're all serious. And I think at the end of the day, what happens is you have to find out why this happened, because it can never happen to another president of the United States.
Jay, and just a reflective question for you finally. You've argued cases, of course, before the Supreme Court, international religious cases. How does this case stack up in terms of difficulty and stress level? I think we're both wondering if you gained a few more gray hairs.
What stress? Fortunately, my genes are good on hair, so my family doesn't have many gray hairs in my family. My father, when he passed away at 83 years old, was barely salt and pepper, and I had uncles that were 90 and still had black hair. I've got a few more gray hairs, I will tell you that. My wife says that's like a joke, but I do. Look, it's the stress of, look, my faith played a big role in allowing me to move this forward, and I relied on that constantly. God was gracious. We got a great victory. I felt like, in a sense, I was trained my whole life for that moment.
Well, Jay Sekulow with great genes, we thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, guys.